This is vlog post number 4 by JC Andrijeski, author of the Allie's War series, for Shield Allie's War Book 2. Hi, I'm JC Andrijeski, the author of the Allie's War series, and this is vlog post number 4 for the Shield Allie's War Book 2 book tour with Bewitching Book Tours. And today I'm primarily going to be talking about the bridge and the sword, which are two of the main sort of mythological characters in the Allie's War series. So who or what is the bridge? That is sort of the million-dollar question from Allie's perspective, pretty much from the beginning of the first book. She's only told that she is the bridge. She doesn't really understand what that means for quite a long time. She's given a whole bunch of different interpretations of what this might mean. Everything from sort of, you're going to end the world to you're going to save the world. Specifically that you're going to save humans or allow them to evolve to a higher form than what they are now. She also, is told essentially that she's there to save the seers from the humans, and that's part of her role as well. Essentially, what the seers believe is they believe in these kind of series of apocalypses, I guess, over periods of time, but they have a very specific kind of evolutionary take on what that means. The idea of a Gestalt type theory where, you have a group that moves along like this, essentially, maybe with some ups and downs, evolutionarily speaking, but at some point there has to be a break for them to go up or down in a dramatic enough way to truly change the species. Seers call these displacements, and they believe that these events are extremely important. So they have this whole myth around that when it comes to the different humanoid species of Earth, and they believe that basically that a major displacement happened or actually they believe that 2 have happened so far and that a 3rd one is on its way. Essentially what happened at that point is that, there was a cataclysmic apocalyptic event that wiped most of them out but forced those that remained to evolve. It's said that that's when they developed their psychic abilities. And now in Allie's time period where the novels take place, they're actually leading up to what they believe is the 3rd of these displacements, which is the one that's supposed to allow humanity to evolve to some sort of higher state. The sword and the bridge are actually seen as 2 of the helpers on the side of light that are supposed to help humanity go to that higher level. This mythology actually gets sort of confusing, however, because as a part of that, they're also seen as catalysts. Many people see them, depending on where they stand kind of in the ideological spectrum within the seers. Some of the seers see them as sort of being the ones who are going to wipe out the humans and essentially save seers from the humans that they believe are kind of, evil. And then, of course, the humans are very confused about this mythology, and from what they can tell, it's sort of a wishing from the seers that all of them are going to die. I deliberately made this kind of confusing because I think religion itself kind of leaves itself open. All different kinds of religions leave themselves open to various interpretations, so it just made sense to me that there would be this myth that kind of had this evolutionary basis that could then be taken in all these different ways depending on what the personal preferences were of the person reading it. So Allie's pretty skeptical of this. So having been raised human and her family being human and her friends being human, this isn't something she really wants to hear. So Allie really has to kind of come to her own conclusions around this, and it takes her quite a while. And in the meantime, due to the way the seer hierarchy is kind of set up, they've actually put her in charge of the Earth. So yeah, so she's got a lot to swallow in the first few books of this series. So who is the sword? The sword is actually another name for, all of these have sort of their parallels in the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The sword would be the equivalent of death. Death is seen, the sword, Sareem, is seen as the lieutenant of the bridge and the one to help her kind of guide humanity to its next level. The bridge is like the leader, and the sword is kind of the one on the ground that actually does the damage in certain respects. There's a being that was considered to be the sword who existed in this alternate history during World War I. He was said to lead a rebellion of seers who allied with the Germans during that time. He was telekinetic, and yeah, he really scared the humans a lot. If you're telekinetic, you can light a spark. So if you can light a spark, you can blow up a plane in midair. You can also blow up a tank. You could ignite fuel stores. You can do a lot of things that you could potentially, set off a nuclear bomb. He just wiped out, hundreds of thousands of people during World War I, before he was kind of wrestled to the ground by a group of seers and humans who basically brought him down and killed him. And that was the end of that. So, a lot of this stuff is based on our history, kind of twisted a bit and mixed in with the idea of like these superpowers and how humans would respond to the real threat of a group of beings that could potentially completely annihilate them, like just with a handful of them potentially. So yeah, the humans reacted pretty strongly to that and enacted what are, called what I call in the book the Human Protection Act, which includes the seer codes and creates a body of basically enforcers, like law enforcers, that I call SCARB, which is seer containment. And essentially what they do is they act as kind of a world police to ensure that seers do not cause a threat to humans. And part of that is where all of the laws come, where seers are required to wear collars. They're required to be owned if they're going to be in human environments. The only seers that are exempt from any of these rules essentially are the seers that are living in like snow caves meditating and don't pose any kind of threat to humanity. So yeah, so Sword fits into that mythology, both in their modern day history and in the mythology of the displacement, where he is said to be the kind of lieutenant of the bridge. So human beings at this point don't really have any kind of context for who the bridge is. They don't really have strong feelings about that personage in any way. But the sword, yeah, they do. They have some pretty strong feelings about the sword because to them that's not really a myth. They don't really care so much about the seer religious take on that. Where they're coming from is that there was a telekinetic seer that almost wiped us out, and in a very short period of time. So to them, whenever there's any talk of Sareem or the sword, it creates a bit of reaction amongst the human beings in this world. But that should give you somewhat of an idea of who the sword and the bridge are, at least according to the seers. Of course, there's this whole human kind of element of this myth as well, which kind of blows up on their equivalent of the internet when Allie really hits the scene in terms of the news as a terrorist, which is how the human world sees her for quite a while. Part of that is that she gets sort of the worship in the fan clubs and, the people wanting her to bless babies. And so at the beginning of book 2, you actually see her doing some of this kind of stuff where, she's sort of meant to be the head of state in a way and bless, sort of be there for the parades and the holidays and the religious rituals of whatever kind, even though she doesn't really understand them and certainly doesn't understand her role in them. It puts her in a really awkward situation in a lot of ways, which would be hard, I think, even if you grew up with that. But I think if you were just sort of thrust into it when you come from a totally different culture that doesn't even acknowledge most of these things as meaningful, it just, compounds the possibilities for misunderstandings. So yeah, she's got kind of a tough adjustment to make at the beginning of the book. So this concludes vlog post number 4 of the Shield Allie's War Book 2 book tour. I hope you enjoyed it and were able to sit through all of my bizarre ramblings and that it was interesting in some way or form. Stick around and enter the giveaway. I hope that you get a chance to win some of the cool prizes that we have. And hopefully you will enjoy some of the other posts. I'm going to do a couple more on the world and the characters and that kind of thing. So stick around and hopefully you'll enjoy those too. Thanks. Bye. And yes, here we go. The monkeys. Oh, the monkeys. The monkeys.